while Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were in the Oval Office, solving actual problems, the Democrats find themselves in quite the predicament, where their narrative is not actually lining up to their actions, and even their own party is finally kind of waking up to it. Now, this weekend, Bernie Sanders and the new frontrunner for the 2028 presidential race, AOC, very ironically, jet set out to the Coachella music concert in California. That's this high-end weekend soiree with tickets costing between $600 and $1,200 a pop, to give this message.
To fight for economic justice, social justice, and racial justice. We have an economy today that is working very well for the billionaire class, but not for working families.
Now, if Bernie actually believed any of that, first off, he wouldn't own 3 houses, but he would actually have been in favor of these tariffs then. But the Democrat Party isn't exactly for the things that they say they're for. We know that, but now even Democrats are finding that out, because at the exact same time Bernie was given this speech, the UAW union boss was on MSNBC on Sunday, on one of their new Sunday shows, by the way, to point out exactly why Bernie and all the others opposing Trump really ain't for the little guy.
When it comes to tariffs, look, we support tariffs on auto, on heavy truck, on agricultural implement. We have plants at Deere in Iowa right now that are threatening to be closed and go to Mexico. Let's talk about profits. In the last 15 years, the top 10 automakers in this country generated $1.6 trillion in profits. And you know what they did with those profits? They didn't reinvest it in the plants. They didn't lower prices for consumers, and they sure as hell didn't invest it in the workers. But what they did do, they spent $367 billion in buybacks and dividends for Wall Street and over $1 billion for CEOs.
Dude, this is huge. Democrats are losing the unions. I never thought I would see the day for this. First, it was the Teamsters that refused to endorse Kamala Harris. And now the UAW, the auto workers union, is basically saying, yeah, Democrats left us in the dust and let the rich get richer while workers lost their jobs and were outsourced to foreign countries. Wow. I told you so comes to mind. And the party that is actually standing up for the working class in practice, not just in rhetoric, is now the Republican Party. J.D. Vance addressed this today.
For 40 years, we have lost manufacturing capacity. Workers have seen their wages stagnate. And some of the most critical things that we need, from the pharmaceuticals, the drugs that we give to our children, the antibiotics that we give to our kids, to the weapons that we actually need to fight a war, if God forbid we had to fight a war, we don't make enough of that stuff.
So who's really looking out for the American worker? The guy who never had a real job until he was elected mayor of Burlington, Vermont, and has been on the government dole ever since, somehow amassing 3 homes while doing it, flying around on private jets talking about climate change? Or the guys that are actually bringing American jobs and products and investments back to America? I'm just asking. And the media, like the same media that is so in the tank for Democrats. These guys are so in the tank.
We're doing it because we want to make our own drugs. We're doing it because we want to make our own steel and aluminum, lumber, other things.
Yeah, we do want to make those here. We sure used to. We used to go out of our way to support the company that our neighbor worked for. People took so much pride in their companies that they worked there for their entire career, 20, 30, 40 years. And the companies recognized that. And it led to the greatest products in the world that lasted. There's a song out there about an old timer. It's called Made in America by Toby Keith. And a few of those lines go, "It breaks his heart seeing foreign cars filled with fuel that isn't ours, wearing cotton he didn't grow. He's got the red, white, and blue flying high on the farm, Semper Fi tattooed on his left arm. Spend a little more in the store for a tag in the back that says USA." That's what made America great. That mentality and that generation. Now, I tried to express this sentiment last week that a lot of you saw. But Jimmy Kimmel, the same classless Jimmy Kimmel, showed exactly the hubris that I was pointing out.
These guys on the right-wing propaganda channels, they're bending over not just backwards, but frontwards to try to put a positive spin on this, for why it's smart and good. And one of these guys, a very bright gentleman named Carl Higbie, argued that his viewers who dared to question Trump should be ashamed of themselves.
This was a test. We were just presented with our nation's version, our generation's version of the post-Pearl Harbor posters that went up that said, Uncle Sam, pointing at you, I want you for the U.S. Army. Trump wanted you to put America first and yourself second for a week, and most people couldn't do it.
You selfish monsters. I hope you're proud of you. You couldn't just let them drain your 401k?
Yep. For our country. That's what I asked for a week. I went to war for 9 years because I believe in what this country stands for. Back-to-back 9 months deployments to Iraq, leaving everyone behind to make sure that we fought the bad guys on their shores and not ours. And you're unwilling to take a temporary hit on your stock portfolio, Jimmy, that you knew darn well would come right back, by the way. Yeah, like how dare me, right? So, Jimmy, I think it is a bit selfish for people to jump ship 5 days into fixing what is a national security issue that could be a lot worse down the line. I do think it's a bit selfish for people to scream and cry when all the president now is trying to do is make America stronger. Stronger so even your many dollars go further. So you don't have to worry about the next time you or your family might need antibiotics when they get sick. So we have that steel to make anything from our own battleships to the rafters in your studio, or the timber to build that desk you sit behind and crack jokes from, or the fuel you put in your private jet or fancy car service. I didn't ask anyone to go fight on the beaches of Normandy, okay? I asked for you to hold the line for a temporary 10% hit on your stock portfolio, which is back now, by the way. Sure, he's poking fun at me. Look, that's what comedians do, okay? We get that. But the fact that the audience is laughing shows, or at least a lot of his audience is, on American values. Wonder how many in that audience has ever made a sacrifice for their country. Didn't sound like a lot. I wonder if there's an old-timer in that audience with Semper Fi tattooed on his left arm. We as a country should listen to that song again. Too many people are blaming Trump for at least trying to clean up the mess from the last 60 years that got us so dependent on foreign goods, off the gold standard, and not taken seriously by our adversaries anymore. Did I mean what I said? Yeah, you bet I did, Jimmy. And I'd say it again. And look, I'm not perfect with all this. I at least try to buy American for the most part. I'm fortunate enough to be able to spend a little bit more, and I do. But yes, sometimes I order cheap junk from China out of convenience. But that's part of the problem. Like I said, I'm not innocent of it. But we of a society have traded personal convenience and ease for patriotism, or feel good about ourselves for some cockamamie perceived moral high ground. Heck, we gave up the Panama Canal that we built with American money and American lives, by the way, for $1. This is the mind virus we got to correct because it's infected everything. So, Jimmy, you can call me whatever you want, bootlicker, do all the hit pieces on me. I don't care. I'm backing the dude who's at least trying to make us great. Your guy drove us into the ground while you made millions off making jokes about it. Like, I pay $10 an egg to be on this side of the fence because it will ultimately win, just like it did with the tariffs. So how about, instead of making fun of the solution, maybe pick on the clowns that got us here in the first place? Until then, you're welcome on this show. I'll be the guy with the red, white, and blue flying high on my farm.
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weekday on Newsmax.